Okay, now we're ready to wet out our liner. Today we're using the Sanicom EXRR2 epoxy resin, which is a thick tropic resin, so it's very thick. So the benefits of that is that you don't get a lot of runoff, a lot of drips, you don't lose a lot of resin when inserting into the pipe. So the important things to remember is each resin will have different measurements of a Comp A and a Comp B. There's specific calculations for the liner you're using and that particular resin. On our website under the resins, we've actually got a calculator on there where you can enter the details of how long your run is, and it will tell you how much resin you need. And the other important thing is to be aware of is that once you've started mixing, you've got a certain amount of what we call pot life, which is basically your playtime of getting the liner wet out onto the packer, into the drain and inflated. Now, if you take any longer than that, the resin will start to cure and the packer won't expand, and you'll end up with a failed liner. So with this particular resin, we've got a 10 to 12 minute pot life. Now that's measured at 22 degrees ambient, and that would give us a 2 to 2.5 hour cure time after it's inflated. So again, the paperwork is very important to note that. So you want to note the time that you're going to prepare the mixing, and before you do that, you want to have checked that your pipe is ready. You've cleaned it out using a high pressure jet, milling machine, chain knockers, sandpaper attachments. You know, our preference is the Fixer series with sandpaper attachments, which is available on our website, which descales, takes any sharp edges out. So we're using here, we're going to go from PVC, 100mm PVC. We've got a very poor join on a PVC to cast iron pipe, and we've also got some cuts in this cast iron, which we'll show you once it's all cured. So we're going to be pushing the packer in from this end. So we want to know that this is all ready to go. There's no cameras down the drain. You've got your compressor on, compressor's ready. Either you've got your power to the compressor, you've got batteries charged if you're using a battery compressor. Now we use the 2 and 2 rule, which is 2 people on site and everything gets checked twice by each person before anything else happens. So it rules out any reasons why you should end up with a failed liner. So you get 2 people checking, and that really does help. There's many times where people have accidentally left, had their camera in there, pushed it in, they actually haven't pulled it back far enough, it's been inflated, and they've lined over their camera head. So I've pre-weighed the resin today for this demonstration, but again, you need to follow the manufacturer's instructions on that. It's very critical. We're going to be using a cordless drill with a resin mixer, which is important. So we'll probably mix it for anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute until we're confident that everything's mixed and we get that consistency, and then we'll start to wet this liner out. Now your PPE is critical, so your gloves, safety glasses. So you want to have your material safety data sheets, on site, whether it's in paper or on your phone or your iPad or your laptop, and it's available in the event that something did get it on their skin, get in their eyes, that you know what to do. So we can't stress that enough. Again, they're all available on our website for any products that we sell. If you are purchasing from somewhere else, just ensure that you've got a copy of them on site. It can be very damaging to your eyes and irritating of skin, etc. So if you do need to go to the doctor, you can provide them with that paperwork, and it'll explain to them what's exactly in the resins, and they'll know how to treat it from there. So we're going to tip the blue resin into this bucket first. As you can see, this is quite thick in itself. It's nowhere near as thick as the hardener. So this is like a Yamaha blue colour. The resins that you buy, they come in all different colours. The colours don't actually correspond to anything in particular. There's green, orange, blue, clear. So we're going to start mixing this hardener in. I'm just going to stand up here so you can see me mixing it in. So generally, as we're pouring this hardener in, we'll start to mix it. So normally we would do this on the floor, but just for the purposes of the demonstration, you're going to set it up like this. Going to put this on the ground, a good mix. So we want to keep as much air bubbles and things like that out of it as possible when we're mixing. And you want to make sure that we mix all of the Comp A and Comp B together. So now we are on the cloth for our pot line. So a good resin mixer is always required. Now please never shake it. We see a lot of plumbers that have to put it into like pre-measured containers and shake it by hand. And with epoxy resin, there's absolutely no way that you'll be able to get it mixed to the consistency that's required. So the resin does get, can get everywhere. Be very careful of that because it will stick to everything. So if you're at a client's house, you don't want to get it onto the floor, which is why we use the black plastic. Very critical if you're on a site where you need to protect the flooring. You just simply line